you'll see on your right side of your screen, you should have a little tab that says questions, and you can write any of your questions in even as Joe is talking, and we'll get those questions coming to us, and then when we move to the question and answer portion, then we will have we'll use those questions and have Joe answer the questions for everybody. So I want to first of all thank all of you for attending this afternoon. I know that you've been eagerly awaiting this webinar. I've gotten many emails waiting for the baseline reports and to understand you know, what's happening. So I think this is going to be a very, very good webinar today, so you'll be able to understand all the information. And a few things that I just want to talk about, I know some people have just joined me since I started talking, is that I'm going to just give a brief overview of the talent dividend work. I know you're all steeped in what you're doing locally and what we're doing nationally, but just kind of revisit how we got where we are. Then Joe is going to go into the baseline reports, and kind of he's going to do an overview of the data as well that we'll be looking at to judge the cities in the competition for the prize. And then after that time, we're going to go into questions and answers. And I wanted to let you know that we are recording this webinar, and we're going to be sending the link out to everybody afterwards, so you'll be able to listen to this once we're done. So with that being said, just to give a brief overview of the talent dividend, and I think most of you have heard this many, many times, but the talent dividend work really comes out of our research that we did with the city dividends, which was looking at small things that cities could do, people in cities could do that would reap large economic benefits. And the talent dividend work really is the first among equals in terms of our city dividends, in that of the $166 billion that can be reaped annually with the city dividends work, the talent dividend accounts for 124 of that $166 billion. And if we can just increase the college attainment rate by 1 percentage point in different cities, that will mean different amounts for each of those cities. And so this work has really, really been important because, one, I think most people understand that education is important, but to be able to put education and educational attainment in terms of you know, economic benefit was a new way of looking at this information, and so cities really wanted to get into this work. And so in 2009, the Talent Dividend Network was formed, and cities started to join. They got together twice a year to talk about this information and what they could do to move the needle to increase their talent dividend. And then I think it was 2009, 2010, the Lumina Foundation and Kresge Foundation came to the table with some other funders and folks who were working on the talent dividend work, and thought, well, what if we could do a prize and put some money forward for cities to compete for the, you know, who is the most talented city. And hence the Talent Dividend Prize was born and was launched in May of this year. We have 57 cities competing, and most of you met each other at the kickoff in May. Bridget Marquis was running the Talent Dividend for CEOs for Cities, and she left the organization consultant. And I was brought in the middle of August to replace her and work on this work. And so I've been working with CEOs since August and trying to pick up where she left off and get running with this. And our next meeting that we're going to be having is going to be in April in Houston, April 2nd and 3rd. And you will get information about that shortly. So hopefully you will all be able to attend. And with that, I'm going to kick it off to Joe. And this is more of the information that you've all been waiting for, and have him go through his presentation on the baseline reports and the data. And just a reminder for those who've just joined us later, you'll see on the right-hand side of your screen that there is a line that says questions. And if you have any questions as Joe's going through his presentation or as we get to the question and answer portion, please feel free to write your question there, and then we will answer the questions in the order that we've received them. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Joe. And Joe, just let me know if your screen comes up.
Okay. Can everybody see a screen now that says Talent Dividend Metrics? I should rely on you, Fran. Okay.
I don't see it.
See it. Just a second. How about now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Can everybody see that now? That should be the PowerPoint.
Mm-hmm.
Good. So I'm going to proceed. I'll be talking about the metrics that we use to judge the talent dividend, and then a set of supporting information, a set of benchmark reports that really give you a snapshot of where your metropolitan area is and where the opportunities are to improve educational attainment in your region. So just to give you a quick roadmap to the presentation, I'll spend just a minute talking about the talent dividend and how we came up with that and what the research is behind it, what motivates us and the sponsoring foundations Lumina and Kresge to support this work. Then I'll briefly talk about how we'll calculate the prize, so you know the standards against which metropolitan areas will be judged. And the thing I just hasten to add here is you're really not competing against other people, you're competing against yourselves, because it doesn't really matter where your metropolitan area is today, the talent dividend prize is going to be awarded based on improvement from where you start. So that's a key thing to keep in mind. Then third, I'll talk about those benchmark reports that, again, flesh out how your region is doing and where the opportunities are to improve educational attainment, and then we'll have some time for questions. So let me start by talking about the talent dividend. As Fran mentioned, it's part of a larger effort called City Dividends, but clearly talent is where the big payoff is. We estimate that for the 50 largest metropolitan areas in the United States, that improving educational attainment by just 1 percentage point would have the effect of raising national income by about $124 billion a year. Now let me just tell you a little bit about how we came up with that computation. We're actually basing that on a pretty significant established base of economic research that shows that better educated metropolitan areas do have higher incomes, and it's really because those better educated workers are more productive, more highly skilled, less likely to be unemployed. So when we look across metropolitan areas in the United States, we see that there's a fairly wide variation in educational attainment. Some metropolitan areas have 40% or more of their population with a 4-year degree. Some have actually 20% or less of their population with a 4-year degree, which we use as a quick way of benchmarking overall educational attainment. But what we observed is that variation in in educational attainment is reflected in levels of per capita income. So when we chart the relationship of educational attainment to per capita, that there's a very strong, positive, statistically significant relationship between how well educated your population is and how high your income is. And this is a scatter diagram that shows for the 50 largest metropolitan areas where they rank on each of those indicators. And that line that's drawn from the lower left to the upper right shows you the overall statistical relationship between education and income. And what that works out to, on the next slide, is that every 1 percentage point increase in the college attainment rate is associated statistically with about a $760 increase in per capita personal income. Now I want to just hasten to add here that we're not saying that it's only about 4-year degrees. Clearly the improvement at every step in the educational attainment spectrum plays a role in contributing to improvements in income and in productivity. So it's not just about taking a few people who don't yet have quite a 4-year degree and moving them past that post. It's really about shifting the whole distribution of educational attainment to the right, so that we would have fewer high school dropouts, we would have more people who completed high school, more people who enroll in college, more people who get 2-year degrees, more people who get 4-year degrees, and even more people who get graduate and professional degrees. And what we're doing by
Joe, sorry,
emphasizing...
this is Fran. We're getting some folks who are saying that the slides are not advancing.
Oh.
Would you like me to advance them as you go forward?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead, Fran, and take back control over, and
okay.
Because I'm seeing I'm seeing a shifting distribution slide on my.
Okay.
We'll pause for just a minute, but I'll just say that again, we use the 4-year degree measure as a way to describe educational attainment in the most succinct way possible, but we recognize that it's really about making improvements at every step of the way. Fran, do I need to let go here for you to seize control, or?
No, I just wanted to get your presentation up, and then I will take it over, and if you just want to tell me
we want to go to the slide that is labeled the Talent Dividend Prize next.
This one?
Just a second. I'm on my PowerPoint, so just a second. Let me get back with you. Keep going. About 3 more slides. Okay. So that's the correct. We overshot. Okay, there we are. The Talent Dividend Prize. As you all know, it's a prize that will go $1 million that will go to the metropolitan area that records the highest increase, the greatest increase in the number of degrees that are awarded over the 4-year period that we're looking at, starting in 2009, finishing in 2013. And we're looking at post-secondary degrees, and we'll essentially weight bachelor's and more advanced degrees at twice the weight that we weight the associate's degrees. So if you go on to the next slide, Fran, there's a brief explanation of the calculation there. We're getting the data on degrees awarded, and I'll show you that in just a minute, from something called IPEDS, the Integrated Post-Secondary Education Data System that's run by the U.S. Department of Education. We'll get our population data from the Census Bureau's American Community Survey. We'll weight degrees. 2-year degrees will be weighted at half the rate of 4-year and higher degrees. The base year for our calculation will be looking at the 2009-2010 academic year. The final year will be the 2012-2013 academic year. And there are some more detailed rules, and we can talk more about the specifics there, but they are spelled out for you on the website at the address that's given there. So I'm sure you've all paid attention to that, and we can answer some more questions, but let me proceed to talking about the benchmark reports, because it will flesh out some of the sources of these data. And for each of the metropolitan areas, we've prepared a set of benchmark reports in 3 areas. We have an attainment report that looks at the current level of educational attainment in your communities. We have an enrollment report that really focuses on the performance of the K-12 education system, and if you will, the pipeline into post-secondary education. And then finally, for your reference, we have an institution report that tells you what's going into that IPEDS database that we'll use to do the talent dividend calculations. So let's walk through briefly each of these reports, which are available to you now through the report, through the Talent Dividend website. So first, the benchmark attainment report. We're measuring the performance of each metropolitan area, and I want to hasten to add that these are all metro level data, in each of 4 areas: the level of high school completion, the level of college continuation, the number of people going on to enroll in post-secondary education. Then we're looking at adult post-secondary education, so people who are usually of working age or in the workforce, and the degree to which they're going back to school or attending classes. And then finally, we look at college completion measures. So if we go on to the next one, Fran, show you a quick picture of what the benchmark attainment report looks like for each metropolitan area. And we have a set of indicators there for each metropolitan area. So I've shown you the report here for Chattanooga, and it shows that each of those indicators, the high school completion rate, college completion, college continuation, and adult attendance. And we've also included some data about migration that I won't be going into detail on as part of this presentation. So you can see two things. You can see where that metropolitan area ranks. So for example, in terms of high school completion, Chattanooga is about 85.3%, which is just slightly below the median for all the large metropolitan areas in the United States. And we've used the top 50 metro areas as just a way of gauging where your metropolitan area compares, recognizing that not all metro areas are in the top 50. But it gives you some information about the distribution. And I'll go through each of these in a moment. Let me just go on to the next one and show you the universe of this top 50 metropolitan areas. And this shows where they rank right now in terms of the four-year college degree attainment rate. These are listed alphabetically. Not all of these cities are the Talent Dividend Prize. But I want to draw your attention to one thing, which is these are the data that are taken from the American Community Survey. The American Community Survey is just that. It is a survey. It is based on a sample of about 3 million households each year in the United States. And like any survey, it has a margin of error. And what we've shown here for you is how big the margin of error is for each of the 50 largest metropolitan areas. And we'll show you the margin of error, can show you the margin of error for every estimate. So it's important to keep in mind when you look at the ACS data that they do have a margin of error, and you need to be aware of that in interpreting the data. And just to give you a quick sample of what that's like, we go on to the next slide, Fran. We'll show you for the 10 highest ranking large metro areas in the U.S. What the estimate is, according to the American Community Survey, of the adult population with a four-year degree. You see that Washington and San Jose have the highest levels of educational attainment, followed by San Francisco and Boston, and then going down the list there. And the length of each of those bars represents what's called the 90% confidence interval of the estimate of the college attainment rate. And you can see for some large metropolitan areas, if you look down towards the second from the right, you'll see New York. That's a very short little bar because there's a pretty big sample size for New York, and it enables us to get a very precise estimate. Then if you look at some of the less populous metropolitan areas, there in the middle you see Raleigh and Austin. Those bars are very long because the sample size is smaller in those less populous metro areas. And so we don't know exactly what the number is. And one of the things to be aware of is that the actual value could be anywhere in that bar. There's a 90% chance that it's somewhere within that bar, and only a 10% chance statistically that the real value in the population is higher or lower than that number. So for example, when we compare San Francisco and Boston, which are the second and third and fourth ranked metropolitan areas, there's really no statistical difference between San Francisco and Boston. They both basically have about the same educational attainment level. So as you look at the ACS and as you interpret it, be aware that it is a statistical sample. You need to know how big these error bars are around each of these estimates. So that's just a word of caution in interpreting this data. So let's launch into a quick review of each of the metrics that are in the benchmark attainment report. Next slide, the college continuation rate looks at the total 18 to 24-year-old population and asks what fraction of them have enrolled in some form of post-secondary education. So it's a snapshot for your entire 18 to 24-year-old population of how many are enrolled in college. The next indicator is the college completion rate, and we're taking a snapshot of 24-year-olds and showing you at a time when not all, but most people have completed an undergraduate degree if they're going to, how many of them have completed a four-year degree. The next measure is the adult post-secondary attainment rate or enrollment rate, which asks two questions. One that we've summarized here, which is what fraction of 25 to 44-year-olds, so sort of the prime working age population, has finished at least high school and don't yet have a bachelor's degree. What fraction of those people have attended college classes in the period in which the American Community Survey asked that question? And we actually give you two data points there, one for the 25 to 44-year-olds, another one for the 25 to 54-year-olds. So we have two definitions of the working age population. Now to show you on the next chart why we focus on this particular age group. This shows you for the entire nation that it really is younger people who do go back to school. And there's a pretty steady decline as people age in their tendency to enroll in classes. So it's the case that, you know, people who are 30 years of age, about 8–9% of them tend to be taking classes still. That falls to 4% by the time you're 40. It falls to about 2% by the time you're 50. And it's about 1% by the time you're 60. So it's really the case, as you probably all know, that the younger adults are the ones who are the best candidates to be going back to school. So that's a quick overview of that attainment report. Again, we're giving you snapshots of various aspects of the performance of your system based on American Community Survey. So if we go on to the next one, we have our enrollment report, and this is looking now at the K-12 system, the pipeline that is feeding post-secondary education in most of your communities. And we're reporting data from what's called the Common Core of data that's gathered by the National Center for Education Statistics, again, the same organization that does the higher ed, the IPEDS data. And we're showing you for the last 5 school years for which we have data going back to 2005, 2006, how many people are enrolled in each grade level. That's the bottom half of this chart. How many people are getting diplomas. That's the last line of the chart. And then we've done something, we've computed what's called cumulative promotion index. And that's really a surrogate for, if you will, the graduation rate for all of the K-12 institutions in your community. And that's computed, we can go on to the next slide, there's a little formula that shows you how that's computed. It basically looks at the rate at which students are promoted each year. So you look at what fraction 9th graders go on to the 10th grade, what fraction of 10th graders go on to the 11th grade, 11th graders to 12th, and what fraction of 12th graders go on to get a diploma. You multiply all of those together, and that gives you the cumulative promotion rate, which is a statistically comparable way of aggregating and roughly estimating, not precisely estimating, the graduation rate for all of your educational institutions taken as a whole. Again, this doesn't reflect necessarily any individual school. It is capture the effect of transfers of students among school and people moving in and out of your area. But it's a good rough way of judging, particularly relative to other metropolitan areas, where you stand in terms of moving people through that pipeline. And I just want to note we don't yet have the 2009-2010 diploma rate. We'll be adding that data so that you can see what that is. So the final benchmark report is what we call the institution report, and it shows you the number of degrees awarded, the number of post-secondary degrees awarded, and the names of each of the institutions awarding those degrees that are included in this IPEDS database on which we will calculate the talent dividend. So again, we just selected Chattanooga here for you and shown you the list of institutions there, and it shows you the number of associate's degrees that were listed, that were awarded by each institution, and the number of bachelor's, master's, and other advanced degrees that were awarded. That gives us the total number of degrees in each metropolitan area. That's the core baseline data that we will be taking a look at as we compute where metropolitan areas are today, and then where they are 4 years from now when we make the call on awarding the Talent Dividend Prize. So just to summarize, what can you do with this data? We think there are a number of things you can do with it. It can give you some idea of where your region is strong and weak, how it's performing on each of these levels. Are you getting kids graduated from high school? Are you getting them enrolled in college? Are you getting them through college? Where does your adult education system stand? You can use that institution report to see who all the institutions are that are the degree granting institutions in your community, and make sure that they're all included in your effort. You can look and see which metropolitan areas are performing particularly well. We'll make all this data available so you can look at these benchmark reports for any metro area that's part of the Talent Dividend Prize competition. There are 57 of them. And if there are ones that you think are good examples, you can see what it is that they are doing, or you can see where they are performing better than you are and maybe learn from that. And then we hope this will give you some insight into what are the special conditions that might influence the performance in your community, because we know every community is different. And again, the thing I want to hasten to add here is we're not judging you based on the level of where you are relative to other places, but how much improvement your metropolitan area shows over the next couple of years. So that's the quick outline of what's in the benchmark reports, and I'd be happy with the time we have remaining to answer any questions. So I'll turn it back to you, Fran.
Okay, I'm just making sure that I'm not muted. So we do have a couple questions here, and feel free, if anyone has a question, to type your question in on the panel on the right-hand side underneath questions. The first question that we had was, Joe, will you continue to use the ACS 3-year series going forward?
We will continue to make use of the ACS data again to provide information to you for benchmarking purposes. But one of the things I want to just remind people of here is the ACS data is not used to determine who wins the prize. That's going to be based on the degrees awarded data that we get from IPEDS. So we think the ACS data is very useful to communities in sort of understanding where they're at and thinking about where to target their efforts. And we'll be providing you both with updates of this data, these series, on the 3-year basis. And we'll also be preparing some more detailed data broken out by different demographic groups, so looking at different racial and ethnic groups within your population, again, to give you a sense of where your metropolitan area stands in terms of educating different components of its population.
Okay. I know we had let's see. Another question is this public school data only, or does it include Catholic independent schools?
It includes both public and private schools, and I have a link that I will send out to you so you can go to the Common Core of Data website and see the exact standards that they use. And it's possible, although we haven't done it here, to actually drill down and look at data for individual schools. But what we've done with this effort, because we're trying to encourage folks to think about the metropolitan scale, is give you these total metropolitan numbers, which generally don't get reported. You see school district numbers, you see school numbers, you see city numbers, but not much focus on metro, which is why we have shown you these numbers.
And then I think a follow-up to that question, that same question is, and for the cumulative promotion index, is that only for public schools?
Now, the CPI is based on everything that's reported in the Common Core of Data.
Okay. And then another question is, do you count advanced degrees as additive, even though they already have a bachelor's?
Great question. Yeah, actually, the data that we're looking at are just on degrees awarded. So if somebody earns a bachelor's and the same person goes on to earn a master's or a PhD, those get counted twice because we're not looking at individuals, we're looking at numbers of degrees awarded.
Okay.
So as a practical matter, we don't have a way to know whether somebody got a bachelor's and a master's in this period or got them separately or even in different places. So we're just looking at the numbers of degrees awarded.
So one of the questions is if you could elaborate on the analysis of working age BA migration section of the attainment report.
Oh, sure. One of the things that we wanted people to be aware of is if you can go back to that slide, Fran, that'd be terrific.
Sure.
I think it's about slide 9. No, 13. There we go. Nope.
This one? I don't have the numbers up.
Okay, you need to go back. Keep going back. Two more. There.
This one?
Sorry, there's a little lag on my screen. Go forward now 3 slides. There it is. Okay. So at the bottom there, what we've shown you is the number of people with 4-year degrees moving in and out of the metropolitan area in the time period covered by the American Community Survey, and I believe these are the 3-year. They are the 3-year migration numbers. Because one of the things that we think people should be aware of is your ability to raise your educational attainment, your region's educational attainment, which is how you ultimately realize this talent dividend, is influenced to some degree by whether talented people are net moving in or out of your community. And again, this is something that I think the community should pay attention to because it will influence whether you get the benefits of higher educational attainment. But I would hasten to add again, this is not something that we're going to award the talent dividend prize on. That is, you can't essentially get it by benefit of migration. We're just looking at local degrees awarded.
Joe, are you still there?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry, we're getting an echo. We're going to mute it on our end. Or were you finished with the question?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, sorry. A little distracted on our end. Okay, another question here is, in the Talent Dividend Degree Award Report, it says 2009 in quotes. Do these degrees represent the 2009-2010 academic year in iPads? So degrees awarded June 2010?
Good question. I think that's the 2008-2009 numbers. We don't have the 2010. Okay. We don't have the 2010s yet.
Okay. All right. And how do we amend the list of degree awarding institutions to more accurately capture degrees conferred within a region? For example, a law school is based in separate MSA than the home. IPED's reporting.
Yeah. Well, in the first instance, we're relying on the IPED's classification of where the degrees are awarded. But if an institution moves, or if IPED's is not correct, then we will adjust the data. The critical point is, I think the institution is going to get counted in the same place in both the base year and the final year. So we want to make sure that there's consistency in that definition over time if we do make that kind of correction. But if you observe that there is an error in the IPED's report, that an institution that's located in your community isn't counted, or one that is mistakenly attributed to your metropolitan area, that's something that we have the capability to do, but we need to get the information, again, both for the base year and the final year for that institution.
So, and I want to just underscore that, Joe, because I know a lot of communities have had that question. Some schools are included in the report and others are not. And so what you're asking and what we need from the cities, if they see that there's a discrepancy in the list, is that we need to work with them now to correct that so that we can continue to do the reports in the right way, because our reports have to reflect each other. And the same schools have to be on the same reports for this year through 2014.
That's right.
Okay. So then there's another question about online universities without a local presence, and what are we doing about those?
Right. That's one of the things that we're looking at is, and again, we're relying on the IPEDS data as to the location of those universities. So it's again, we're taking them on an as reported basis, and the critical thing there is that they will again need to be reported consistently over the period of time of the Talent Dividend Prize. And if there are significant changes in the way that online degrees get reported, that's something that we'll have to adjust for in awarding the Talent Dividend Prize.
Okay. Another question someone has is, will this presentation be made available to participants? And we will be sending out a link with the audio of this presentation in conjunction with the slides. So people will be getting that shortly, in the next day or two, they'll get this link. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. The next question is, what if an existing school is not listed? I think we went over that. That we'll need to work with that city again to make sure that we have the correct list. But Joe, let me ask you this question. If we don't get the schools now, I mean, is it kind of a thing where what happens next year and someone says, well, this school is moving into this area, what would your answer be to that?
Yeah, I think, there's always the possibility that you have newer expanded educational institutions in your community, and I think that's, something that the way the rules are written, if they award degrees in your community and it's a real change, then that's to the benefit of the community. But if it's just a record-keeping change and there's no physical change in local educational institutions, and that's probably something that we wouldn't recognize as part of that. But one of the things that we've written into rules, because we recognize there is some fluidity in this and some ambiguity, is we will have a panel of judges, and it'll be their call to decide how to deal with some of those. But I think the key thing is we're relying on the IPEDS data collection and definitions about where degrees are awarded, and that'll be our baseline, and we'll do our best to cope with those changes as they occur.
Great. The next question, we've gotten this from a couple of cities. This question asks, Columbia, South Carolina is outside of the top 50 metros. Where do I find the attainment rate data? And Joe, do you want to field that one, and do you want me to go back to any of the reports or any of the slides?
No, you can leave it right where it is. For when we've prepared a separate report for every metro area. So Columbia, you'll have your very own report, and it will show your data, including the four-year college attainment rate. And so we'll make that available.
Great. And then the question is 2010 ACS college attainment rates the starting point for talent? Not sure.
No, again, the thing I'll emphasize here is we're relying on the degree award data from IPEDS to determine the starting point and the end point for talent. We put the ACS data in to show you overall where your population is now, who your peer metropolitan areas are, and then provide this other ACS data to show how you're performing on each of these other measures.
Okay. Another question about adding institutions to the list. Someone's asking about the process and what that process would look like for adding an institution to the list. How do we want them to go about that, Joe?
Well, I think in the annual reports they'll be submitting, I think we need to, as soon as you know about that, incorporate that in the annual report to as part of the talent dividend prize.
Okay. Next question is, are you using ACS 1-year or 3-year estimates?
For the benchmark attainment report we've submitted, we're providing you the 3-year estimates because we know we have a narrower confidence interval, a smaller confidence interval, more reliability of those estimates.
Okay. And does BS degrees include BA degrees?
Yeah, actually it includes, that's shorthand, it's all 4-year degrees, so BA, BS, correct.
Okay. Is the measurement based on each year's gain or just on the results after 4 years?
Good question. It'll be on the overall gain over the 4 years. So we will be comparing the 2012-13 to the 2009-10.
Okay. So we're getting more questions about kind of the process of adding an institution, and they're looking, and people want to know what kind of proof do they need to show to count an institution. And let's say it says, in other words, if there is a higher ed institution in our region and it's not on iPads, will an email from the school with data suffice, or do you need something more official?
That's a good question. I think that's a good place to start. Again, a couple of things that we need to do. First, almost everybody should be in iPads. And so one of the things that I think we would encourage you and that education institution to do, if they're not reporting to iPads, is that they should be. And then, I think beyond that, it's, again, we'll have to kind of judge the quality of the information that we get.
And so if they send a report from that school, we would look at it, but because it's not from iPads, it might not be counted the same way.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, I think the key issue here is consistency. We have to make sure that it's consistent between the base year and the final year, and that somehow it didn't already get counted in iPads somewhere else.
Okay. I have a question here about a specific city and their completion rate. It looks like one rate is different from another. Maybe we'll take that question offline and answer that one specifically, because it might need some specific looking up. So still more questions about adding schools that are not on the list. Does the number of degrees, okay, so this question is, does the number of degrees awarded include students who come to the region only for post-secondary education, non-residents?
Yeah, again, this is based on where the degrees are awarded. We don't have a way of looking at what high school the students attended, whether they moved from somewhere else to attend school there or not. So this is looking at the output of institutions without regard to any information about the origin of the students.
Okay. There's another follow-up question on the 2008, 2009, or 2009, 2010 iPads. The question is, do we use the 08, 09 iPads degrees awarded data as the Metro benchmark, or will 09, 10 be the benchmark for the Metro?
Just a second, let me point to the right slide here. Yeah, 9, 10 is the base, 12, 13 is the final.
Okay. So what if a resident earns a degree from a national online university? Where does that one get counted?
it depends on where the National Online University reports it. And again, if they were reported consistently over in both the base year and final year, the institution did, then we could recognize it. I think if there's a significant change in reporting criteria by a national online university, then it would be very difficult for us to include those.
And I want to underscore here too that in the rules we have some language in there about online degrees, knowing that that might throw some things off. And so I think when we get to 2014, we're going to look at that and make sure that there aren't any inconsistencies there. So someone wants to know, who do we work with to get the school list changed? I think that you can contact me for the point, to be the point person, and we'll work on getting you know, what that process looks like down, so we can communicate that to you. And people want to know about a deadline for the institutional corrections. Joe, do you want to put a deadline down there?
Let's talk further about that. I mean, I think we've had some good questions raised, and I don't want to off the cuff tell you that we got a deadline for that. Let's take a closer look at this and then get back to folks about a deadline and an exact process for this.
Okay. So we'll come up with the process and we'll communicate that to everybody. So if I get any further questions about that, I'm going to skip those questions unless they bring a new wrinkle. Is the 2010 population data used for the base year and the final year in the formula?
No, we'll use the 2013 population for the final year. So the idea of correcting this for population growth is to not reward places that are growing rapidly or penalize ones that are growing slowly, but really to say we would anticipate that over this period of time that we want to net out the effects of just gross population change.
Okay. The next question is about being able to see other cities' data, and the question is, when and where may we expect to find that data? What we're going to do is we're going to put all of Joe's reports for the different cities up on our website, and so hopefully in the next week or two we'll be able to get that on our CEOs for Cities website. So you'll be able to see other cities' data and their benchline reports on our website. Okay, and so this is kind of a question about who gets credit for what degree. We have colleges based in Oklahoma City, but also with campuses in Tulsa. Who gets credit for those degrees awarded in Tulsa? And is that depending, Joe, on how the school reports it?
Yeah, we're again, for the baseline, what we're doing is we're relying on the IPED's procedures for attributing degrees to different campuses. So it's whatever IPED's prescribes in terms of the assignment of degrees to particular locations. And again, if there's a significant change in how that's done over the period of time, we'll need to take a close look at that in calculating how much change there's there.
Okay. Another question, people want to know if this is being recorded. It is. We will send you the link in addition to the PowerPoint presentation, so you can share it with whomever you'd like to share it with. And the next question is, what is the timeline for distribution of data sets?
Well, we have these available to individual cities right now. So.
Right, and then we'll be getting all of them up online shortly. The issue with this time around was that the IPED's data was released late this year, and so we're really kind of beholden to when we get the data from them. I know people were expecting the reports at the end of September, and we're going to do our best, you know, in the coming years to make sure we get them to you as soon as possible, but knowing that, you know, sometimes it's a little bit out of our control. having said that, I know that we've discussed that the winner of the prize will be announced in September of 2014, and we've changed that language to say fall of 2014, just because, again, we don't want to be waiting on data that is out of our control. So we're going to kind of be a little bit more flexible on that date, but that will all be planned around a national meeting, and we'll have that information and the winner announced at that meeting. So just for clarification, someone wants to make sure that there are no points awarded to technical certifications.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, and the next question is, will CEOs for Cities provide iPads data updates for each city through the Talent Dividend website? And yes, so the benchmark reports are going to be put on the website, and then in the years that come, they will be, all data will be put up there, so people will be able to see, where they are, where their cities are, and they can look at it in that fashion. So this question is, how long after the 2012-2013 year will you be confident that you have the correct totals?
That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that yet.
And let me ask a question to you, Joe, about that. We won't be looking at data beyond 2013, correct, for the prize, or will we?
I think our final year is 2012-2013, so that's our cutoff, yeah. Right.
So we won't be looking at anything that's happening after 2013. The 2013-2014, cities will still be working towards the prize. However, it's more at that point in terms of how they can institutionalize their learnings long-term versus, gaining any sort of gains that year towards the prize. So this question is, can we get the data for other areas that are not in the top 50 so that we can compare results across similar cities?
We can certainly do that for the aggregate numbers. The challenge is going to be to do it for all of the 300 and some odd larger metropolitan areas in the country. So we will certainly get it. We can get it to you for all the other smaller metros that are in the Talent Dividend Prize.
And do we want to put that up on the? We can put that up on our website, right, Joe?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. And someone asks, are certificates counted in any way? And at this point, no, and it probably will not change.
I think we've already made the call on that, and we're not including the certificates.
Okay. The individual attainment reports show only the completion rate for 4-year degrees. Isn't the dividend also based on attainment of 2-year and graduate degrees?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. We have not presented for you the two-year degree attainment in that particular report, but it is available.
And the reason why you like to use the 4-year degree, Joe, is because it really is a very good benchmark in terms of where a city is versus using, some other data that is out there. And so we've used that 4-year degree attainment rate as more of average, if you will. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've chosen to try and convey this idea as simply as we possibly can, and so we focused on the 4-year degree attainment rate. We have a couple of much more complex, more sophisticated measures that we use to talk about the whole spectrum of post-secondary education, and that's why when it comes to actually awarding the Talent Dividend Prize, we'll be looking at AAs, at BAs, and at advanced degrees.
Okay. And then the question is, when will the 2009-2010 iPads benchmark be available for the metros?
I don't know. It depends on our access to that data, but we'll try and do it as soon as we can get access to it.
Okay. Another question about certificates, but we've said we're not counting those. So regarding iPads, some proprietary institutions do not report to iPads, thus they may not be included. And that's correct, and what we're saying is we'll come up with a process if cities want to include other institutions, and we'll clarify how that will be done.
Yeah, and again, the key thing there is we need a consistent reporting from the base year through the final year for those institutions.
Okay. Another question is, our metro area has at least 5 satellites of colleges located outside the metro. Is there a way to claim credit for degrees awarded to students who attend these facilities to earn their degrees?
Yeah, again, we're relying on the IPEDS criteria for determining where they report the award of those degrees, and as long as it's done consistently across the period of time from the base year to the final year, yeah, that's the critical factor.
Okay, and then someone just wants a clarification for the data in the years of the data that have been provided. She says it's not clear if the degrees awarded data from iPads you sent out is 0809 or 910.
It's the 0809.
And we're waiting on the 910 to complete that.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So another question is about the data. Will we get the data sources for each city as well, i.e. in Excel formats that we can sort in different formats? I guess we could do that. What do you think about that, Joe?
The answer to that is different for different reports. You know, I think we can do two things. Where we can put it on a single spreadsheet easily, we will post it, and where we can't, we'll give you the link to the underlying data. That institution data, as you can imagine, is quite extensive. So it's a little bit more complex than a single spreadsheet. So we can make that available in those two ways.
Okay. Someone has a question about population data that we're using. Is it 2013 ACS or 2013 census population estimates?
I think the plan is to use the ACS base.
Okay. And will you be accounting for sampling error in regard to population estimates as well?
You know, again, there's the issue. That's an issue that comes down, I think, ultimately to the judgment of our panel of judges. I mean, we will want to be aware of what the sampling error, the estimate is for the overall population for each metropolitan area. And if there is a very, very close call between two cities, that could be something that we have to take a close look at. But again, I don't. We've done a dry run of this, and that's the margin of error. We don't think will be that close, but that's something that we'll have to look at.
I'm going to skip over one person's question just because I'd like to end with that question. The next one is, have you considered moving to 5-year ACS for future updates, allowing smaller metros to be included?
Yeah, I think we will look at particularly for this demographic data, we'll look at the 5-year data. And I think as probably the questioner knows, that the challenge with the 5-year data is then you're talking about the average performance over a 5-year period of time, which makes it a little bit more murky to try and interpret. But yeah, for the small demographic groups, the less populous demographic groups, we will do 5-year data.
Okay. So someone says, basically we have only 17 months to influence the number of degrees granted in 2013, correct? And that is correct. In the way that the prize was structured, because the data comes out basically 14 months, later, we are basically the work that needs to get done for the prize is really, in the next 17 months, and that is correct. The final question that I want to ask Joe, that was asked here, is if you could describe the calculations for determining the winner.
Describe the calculations? Yeah, sure. What we'll do is we'll look at the degrees awarded in the base year and then divide that by the population. And then we'll look at the degrees awarded in the final year and divide that by the population in the metropolitan area that shows the biggest increase in degrees awarded on a per capita basis will be the one that is going to be the winner of the Talent Dividend Prize. And the two caveats of just add in are, one, we will double weight the bachelor's degrees and higher degrees compared to the AA degrees. And we're going to make sure that, to the extent that we can, that the data is gathered consistently in the base year and the final year, and make whatever adjustments we can for the effects of online degrees and other changes that might influence those numbers.
Well, I think that that's great. We don't have any more questions here. What I do want to say to everyone who's still on the call, we still have 57 people on the call, which is a great turnout, is that first of all, thank you for attending the webinar and listening to our report on the baseline results. And we're going to stay in touch with you. We will get you the information that we promised. We'll let you know how to include other institutions that aren't on the list, and we'll get that information out to you. And again, we will provide you with a link to this webinar, the audio of it, and to the PowerPoint. And if you have any further questions or you think of something after the fact, please feel free to contact me, and we'll get your questions answered. So with that, I just want to thank Joe for putting all this together. It's quite a lot, and we've got 3 more years to go. So thanks everybody, and I hope everyone has a great holiday season. All right, Joe, anything you want to say?
Nope, thanks everybody. Good questions, and look forward to working with you.
Wonderful. Okay, thanks everybody.